The warning appeared on every star chart in the galaxy. It was simple and clear. Do not enter human space. Every alien species knew this rule. Every captain respected it. They had learned the hard way what happened when you ignored the warning. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the TDS Valiant. He watched the sensor screens carefully. Another alien vessel was approaching the border. It was a Vraxian scout ship, the third one this month. Jake was not surprised. The aliens were getting curious again. "Sir, they're scanning our defenses," said Lieutenant Amy Carter. She was young but sharp. She never missed anything on her tactical display. Jake nodded slowly. "Let them scan. Let them see what's waiting for them if they cross the line." The Vraxian ship stayed at the border for 20 minutes. Its sensors swept across human space, gathering data. Then, just like the others before it, the ship turned around and left. It did not cross the border. None of them ever did anymore. Amy looked at her commander. "Why do they keep coming here? What are they looking for?" "They're testing us," Jake explained. "They want to know if we're still watching. If we're still ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready for war." The word hung in the air like a dark cloud. War. It was the reason humanity lived behind closed borders. It was the reason the galaxy feared them. 50 years ago, the Krell Empire had attacked Earth's outer colonies. The Krell were powerful warriors. They had conquered 17 different species. They thought humans would be easy prey. They were wrong. The war lasted 3 years. When it ended, the Krell Empire was destroyed. Their home fleet was completely wiped out. Their worlds were left defenseless. The survivors told stories about the humans. Stories that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. They spoke of soldiers who never surrendered. Warriors who fought with broken weapons. Defenders who would rather die than give up. The galaxy learned something important that day. Humans were different. They had survived ice ages on their planet. They had endured terrible diseases. They had fought each other for thousands of years before finally uniting. Every challenge made them stronger. Every threat made them more dangerous. Jake remembered his training at the academy. The instructors had shown them videos from the Krell War. He saw human soldiers fighting against impossible odds. He watched colonies defend themselves with nothing but determination and rage. He learned that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology. It was their refusal to quit. After the war, humanity made a decision. They would isolate themselves. They built massive defense stations along their borders. They created fleets that patrolled every entry point. They sent a clear message to the galaxy. Leave us alone and we will leave you alone. But cross our borders and face the consequences. For 50 years, the galaxy respected that message. Trade ships avoided human space. Military vessels stayed far away. Diplomatic channels remained silent. Humanity became like a sleeping dragon. Everyone knew it was there. Everyone knew it was dangerous. So everyone stayed away. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Ensign Paul Richards from the communication station. "Put it through," Jake ordered. The face of Admiral Lisa Bennett appeared on the main screen. She looked tired. Her gray hair was pulled back tight. Her uniform was perfect, but her eyes showed the weight of command. "Commander Morrison, I have new orders for you. The Galactic Council has requested a meeting with our representatives. They want to discuss trade negotiations." Jake felt a chill run through him. After 50 years of avoiding us, they suddenly want to talk? Lisa's expression grew darker. Something has them scared. "Our intelligence reports suggest a new threat has appeared in the Outer Rim. Something that has the Council worried enough to ask for our help." "Our help?" Jake could not hide his surprise. "They ignored us for half a century. They treated us like criminals. Now they want our help? They're desperate, Commander. The meeting is scheduled for next week at Neutral Station 7. You'll be escorting our diplomatic team." Jake understood immediately. This was not just a meeting. This was a turning point. Something out there was threatening the Council. Something so dangerous that they were willing to approach the one species they feared most. "Who are they afraid of?" Jake asked. "We don't know yet, but whatever it is, it has them terrified. 14 Council colonies have gone dark in the past 3 months. 7 military fleets have disappeared without a trace. They're facing something they can't handle alone." Lisa paused, letting her words sink in. "Humanity stayed isolated by choice, Commander. We built our walls and stayed behind them. But now something has changed. The Council is coming to us because they have no other options. They're coming to us because they need monsters to fight monsters." Jake felt the weight of those words. For 50 years, humanity had been the villain in the galaxy's story. They were the species that destroyed the Krell, the warriors who showed no mercy, the survivors who refused to follow anyone's rules but their own. The galaxy had painted them as monsters, and humanity had accepted that role. Now the Council wanted to use those monsters to save them. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Jake asked. "Escort the diplomatic team. Protect them. Listen to what the Council has to say. And remember, Commander, this is bigger than politics. If there's a real threat out there, it won't stop at Council borders. Eventually, it will come for us, too." The transmission ended. Jake stood alone on the bridge, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, beyond the safety of human space, a new enemy was rising. An enemy so dangerous that the Council was willing to swallow their pride and ask humans for help. He thought about his crew. About the thousands of men and women who served in the Terran Defense Fleet. They had trained their entire lives for this moment. Not for peace and trade, but for war, because that was what humans did best. They survived. They adapted. They fought. "Amy," Jake said quietly, "alert the crew. Tell them to prepare for departure. We leave for Neutral Station 7 in 6 hours. "Yes, sir," Amy replied. She paused before leaving. "Commander, do you think this is real? Do you think there's really something out there that scares the Council?" Jake looked at her. "I think we're about to find out. And I think the galaxy is about to remember why they built walls around human space in the first place." He turned back to the viewport. The stars looked peaceful from here. But Jake knew better. Somewhere in that darkness, trouble was brewing, and humanity was about to step back onto the galactic stage. The question was, would the galaxy survive what came next? Neutral Station 7 was enormous. It floated in the void between territories built from metal and composite materials that shined under distant starlight. The station was designed as neutral ground where enemies could meet without fear of violence. But as the TDS Valiant approached, Jake could see the tension in every ship that surrounded the station. The Council had sent their best representatives. Vraxians, Thelonians, Kryn, and dozens of other major powers, all of them waiting for the humans to arrive. All of them watching nervously as the Valiant docked. "Scan for weapons," Jake ordered as they connected to the docking port. "Multiple warships in orbit," Amy reported. "But all weapons are powered down. They're following protocol." "Good. Let's keep it that way." The diplomatic shuttle left the Valiant's hangar carrying Ambassador Helen Price and her security team. Helen was a former Marine, tough and experienced. She had sharp blue eyes that seemed to see through any lie. If anyone could handle the Council, it was her. Inside the station's conference chamber, Helen walked with her head high. 2 security officers flanked her on each side. The room was massive, designed to hold representatives from many different species. The Council members sat in a half circle, their faces showing fear, anger, and uncertainty. At the center sat High Chancellor Vorn of the Vraxians. He was tall and reptilian, with scales that looked like polished emeralds. He stood as Helen entered, a sign of respect that surprised everyone. "Ambassador Price," Vorn said in his deep voice, "thank you for accepting our invitation." "Let's skip the polite talk," Helen said, taking her seat. "You spent 50 years treating us like we were dangerous animals. Now you want something. Tell me what it is." A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Several shifted uncomfortably. Helen's directness caught them off guard. They were not used to humans who spoke so bluntly. Vorn's eyes narrowed. "Very well. We face a threat unlike anything the galaxy has seen before. They call themselves the Devourers. 3 months ago, they appeared in the Outer Rim. They began destroying everything in their path. 14 colonies have been wiped out completely. 7 military fleets have been eliminated. We estimate their strength at 10 times our combined forces." Helen leaned back in her chair. Her expression did not change. "And you want humanity to fight your war for you." "We want humanity to join the defense," said Counselor Mira of the Thelonians. She was a graceful being with skin that glowed softly. "We are not asking you to fight alone. We ask you to stand with us." "To stand with you?" Helen repeated. Her voice was cold as ice. "Like you stood with us when the Krell attacked our colonies? Like you stood with us when we begged for help and you turned your backs?" Silence fell over the chamber. The Council members looked away. They could not meet her eyes. They knew she was right. "We made mistakes," Vorn admitted. "We underestimated humanity. We thought you were weak and primitive. We were wrong." "Yes, you were," Helen said. "And you paid for that mistake." You watched the Krell Empire fall. You learned to fear us. Now you come here because you need the monsters you created. The Devourers will not stop, Mira said urgently. They will consume the Outer Rim, then the core worlds. Eventually they will reach human space. You cannot hide behind your borders forever. Helen stood up, her hands pressed flat against the table. You're right. We can't hide forever, but understand this clearly. If humanity enters this war, we don't fight by your rules. We don't follow your strategies. We don't ask permission. We fight to win no matter what it costs. And when this is over, the galaxy will remember who saved them. Vorn rose to his full height. He towered over Helen, but there was no threat in his posture. Only a deep, weary resignation. If the Devourers win, there will be no galaxy left to remember anything. We need you, Ambassador Price. We need humanity's strength. Helen looked around the chamber. She met the eyes of each delegate in turn. She saw their fear. She saw their desperation. They had finally realized what humanity had known all along. Sometimes survival meant becoming the thing others feared most. What exactly are these Devourers? Helen asked. Another council member stood up. He was Kryn with 4 arms and silver skin. They are biological ships. They grow instead of being built. They work together like insects in a hive. Individual ships are not very smart, but together they coordinate perfectly. They consume resources from every world they conquer. Then they grow more ships and move to the next target. And you've tried to stop them? We sent our best fleets, Vorn said quietly. They were destroyed in hours. The Devourers adapt quickly. Every tactic we use, they counter within days. They learn from every battle. They grow stronger while we grow weaker. Helen processed this information, a hive-mind enemy that adapted to tactics, ships that grew like organisms, an enemy that consumed everything in its path. This was not a normal military threat. This was an extinction-level event. How much time do we have? Helen asked. Months, Mira said. Maybe weeks. They're advancing faster than we predicted. Another 12 colonies will fall within the month. After that, they'll reach the core systems. Helen walked around the table slowly. She was thinking, calculating. The council watched her with desperate hope. They had nowhere else to turn. Humanity was their last chance. I'll take your request back to Earth Command, Helen said finally, but I make no promises. Humanity survived without the council before. We can do it again if we have to. If you don't help us, Vorn said, the Devourers will eventually reach your borders. You'll face them alone after they've consumed the entire galaxy, after they've grown even stronger. Maybe, Helen said. Or maybe we'll do what we've always done. Survive, adapt, win. She turned and walked toward the exit. The council members watched her go, uncertainty written on their faces. Just before she left, Helen stopped and looked back. You want to know why humanity scares you? She asked. It's not because we're strong. It's not because we're ruthless. It's because we understand something you don't. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become what your enemies fear most. You're afraid of us because deep down you know we'll do whatever it takes to survive. And you're not sure you're willing to do the same. She left the chamber. The silence behind her was deafening. On the shuttle ride back to the Valiant, one of the security officers spoke quietly. Do you think Earth Command will approve military action? Helen looked out the window at the stars. They'll debate it. They'll argue about it. But in the end, they'll say yes. How can you be sure? Because I know humanity. We don't run from fights. We don't hide when others need us. But more importantly, we don't let threats grow until they become unstoppable. If the Devourers are as dangerous as the Council says, we'll deal with them now, before they reach our borders. And if the Council tries to control how we fight, Helen smiled. It was not a warm smile. Then they'll learn the same lesson the Krell learned. You don't control humanity. You either work with us or get out of our way. The shuttle docked with the Valiant. Jake was waiting for her in the hangar. How did it go? He asked. They're desperate, Helen said, and desperation makes people honest. The threat is real, Commander. The Devourers are everything they claimed and probably worse. What do you recommend? I recommend we remind the galaxy why they built walls around human space. I recommend we show them what happens when you wake up the sleeping dragon. Jake nodded slowly. Then I hope they're ready for what comes next. They're not, Helen said simply, but they will be. 3 days after the council meeting, Earth Command made their decision. The emergency session lasted 14 hours. Politicians argued. Military leaders debated. Civilians protested. But in the end, Fleet Admiral George Harper made the final call. Humanity would enter the war. But they would fight on their own terms. No council oversight, no restrictions on tactics, complete operational independence. The council agreed to every demand because they had no choice. The Devourers were advancing faster than anyone predicted. Entire sectors were going dark. Captain Nicole Bennett stood in the ready room of the TDS Crucible, one of humanity's newest warships. Around her sat the commanders of the First Strike Fleet, 27 ships, over 30,000 personnel, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Our mission is simple, Nicole said. Her voice cut through the tense silence. The Devourers have a forward base in the Arcturus sector. Intelligence says it's a staging ground for their next offensive. We're going to destroy it completely. We're going to send a message that humanity doesn't play defense. Commander Ryan Foster leaned forward. He commanded the TDS Hurricane. What do we know about their fighting style? Not much, Nicole admitted. The Council's encounters were brief and brutal. The Devourers use biological ships that grow instead of being built. They're fast and heavily armored. They fight with hive mind coordination. Individual ships aren't smart, but together they work perfectly. Sounds like fighting a swarm of insects, said Captain Laura Kim of the TDS Thunderstrike. Exactly, Nicole confirmed. That's why we're using the scatter protocol. We hit them from multiple directions at once. We break their formation. We destroy their command node. Without coordination, they're easy targets. And if the command node is more defended than we expect? Ryan asked. Nicole's smile was cold. Then we do what humans do best. We improvise. We adapt. We overcome. The Devourers are about to learn why the galaxy fears us. The fleet departed 3 hours later. They jumped through hyperspace in tight formation. When they emerged near the Arcturus sector, every sensor screen lit up with contacts, hundreds of them. Dear God, whispered Lieutenant Chris Yamamoto from the sensor station. There's way more than we expected. Nicole studied the tactical display calmly. The Devourer base was massive. It looked like a writhing mass of organic material that pulsed with sick green light. Surrounding it were at least 300 biological ships. Each one was the size of a frigate. More were emerging from the base every minute. All ships battle stations, Nicole ordered. Execute scatter protocol on my mark. The human fleet split into 7 groups. Each group accelerated in a different direction. The Devourer ships reacted immediately. They broke off to pursue the humans, but they followed predictable patterns. Standard intercept courses. They had never fought an enemy that deliberately split up its forces. Mark, Nicole shouted. The 7 groups executed synchronized hyperspace jumps. They reappeared behind the Devourer formation. Before the enemy could react, the human ships opened fire. Missiles streaked through space. Each one carried a payload designed to disrupt organic matter. Railguns fired tungsten rounds at incredible speeds. The rounds punched through biological armor like it was paper. Devourer ships died by the dozens. Their hulls ruptured. Atmosphere spewed into space. But they didn't retreat. They didn't panic. They simply regrouped with mechanical precision and attacked again. They're adapting, Ryan's voice came through the comm system. They're spreading out, trying to flank us. Let them try, Nicole said. All ships converge on the base. We're going for the throat. The TDS Crucible accelerated forward. It led the charge directly toward the massive organic structure. Devourer ships swarmed around them. They fired bioplasma weapons that splashed against the shields. Alarms blared across the bridge. Systems strained under the assault. Shields at 60%, Chris reported. Keep us steady, Nicole commanded. Target the base's central mass. Load kinetic penetrators. The Crucible's main guns aligned. Energy built up in the charging chambers. Around them, the rest of the fleet formed a protective sphere. They poured fire into the pursuing Devourers. Ships exploded on both sides. The battle was chaos. Firing! Nicole shouted. 3 massive rounds launched from the forward batteries. They crossed the distance to the base in seconds. They struck the central mass with devastating force. The rounds penetrated deep into the organic structure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire base convulsed. The green light flickered and died. Across the battlefield, every Devourer ship suddenly lost coordination. They scattered in random directions. They bumped into each other. They fired wildly without purpose. Target the disabled ships, Nicole ordered. Destroy them all. The next 10 minutes were brutal. The human fleet moved through the Devourers like a scythe through wheat. They showed no mercy. They took no prisoners. Every enemy ship was destroyed. When it was over, the Arcturus sector was filled with debris and the fading glow of dying organic matter. Casualty report, Nicole said quietly. 3 ships damaged. Minimal crew injuries, Chris replied. No fatalities. Nicole let out a breath she had been holding. First blood went to humanity. They had won decisively. But she knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers would come back stronger. Send a message to all Council forces in range, Nicole ordered. Arcturus sector is secure. The Devourers have been eliminated. The message spread across the communication networks. The Council received it with shock and relief. For the first time since the invasion began, a major Devourer stronghold had been destroyed, and humanity had done it with minimal losses. But what the Council didn't know was the full truth. Nicole had watched her crews destroy those ships. She had seen the efficiency, the cold calculation, the complete lack of hesitation. Her people had killed hundreds of enemy vessels without blinking. That was what made humanity dangerous. Not their weapons, not their tactics, but their ability to do what needed to be done without doubt or regret. 2 weeks after Arcturus, the Devourers launched their counterattack. A massive fleet appeared in the Meridian system. The system housed one of the Council's most important shipyards. The defenders were overwhelmed in hours. Desperate calls for help echoed across every channel. Humanity responded. Lieutenant Commander Danny Sullivan commanded the TDS Reaper, a stealth corvette. His ship was part of a rapid response unit. 12 corvettes stationed near Meridian. When the Devourers attacked, Danny was ready. All units, this is Reaper Actual, Danny transmitted on the encrypted channel. We're going in hot. Hit hard, move fast. Don't get pinned down. The 12 corvettes dropped out of stealth mode simultaneously. They appeared in the middle of the Devourer formation like ghosts materializing from thin air. Their weapons opened fire before the enemy could react. Biological hulls ruptured. Ships exploded. Then, before the Devourers could coordinate a response, the corvettes vanished back into stealth. Jump to position Gamma, Danny ordered. The Reaper reappeared 300 kilometers away. It fired another devastating salvo, then vanished again. The Devourer ships spun in confusion. They couldn't track the human vessels. Their hive mind worked perfectly when they could see their enemies, but stealth technology broke their ability to function as one. They're panicking, said Ensign Karen White from Tactical. Their formation is breaking apart. Good, Danny said. All units free engagement. Hunt them down. The 12 corvettes became 12 nightmares. They appeared and disappeared at random. Each strike was calculated for maximum damage. The enemy fleet had numbered over 400 ships. It began to shrink rapidly. 6 hours later, Council reinforcements arrived. The battle was already over. The Meridian system was littered with destroyed Devourer vessels. The human corvettes were nowhere to be seen. They had vanished as quickly as they appeared. Across the galaxy, humanity's reputation grew darker. They weren't just fighters. They were hunters. They stalked their prey with cold efficiency. Species that once dismissed humans now spoke of them with genuine terror. In the council chambers, High Chancellor Vorn called an emergency session. Representatives gathered with mixed expressions: relief, fear, uncertainty. The humans saved Meridian, Vorn announced, but at what cost? Their methods are effective but ruthless. They show no mercy, take no prisoners. Is this the ally we want? Counselor Mira stood. Her luminescent skin dimmed. We asked for humanity's help because we were desperate. We cannot now complain that they fight in ways we find uncomfortable. Would you rather lose to the Devourers while maintaining moral superiority? I would rather win without becoming monsters, Vorn replied. Then you don't understand what humanity is, said a familiar voice. Ambassador Helen Price entered the chamber. She had not been invited, but no one stopped her. Humanity learned long ago that survival requires hard choices, Helen said, walking to the center. You call us ruthless. We call it practical. You call us merciless. We call it efficient. The Devourers are an existential threat. We're treating them as such. If that makes you uncomfortable, you should have thought about it before begging for help. You speak as if we have no say in this war, Vorn said sharply. You don't, Helen replied bluntly. Not anymore. You had centuries to prepare. When the Devourers came, everything collapsed in weeks. The war continued for 6 months. System after system was liberated from Devourer control. Human fleets moved with terrifying efficiency. They struck before the enemy could react. They adapted to every new tactic within days. The Council forces followed behind, securing territory that humanity had already cleared. But the cost was mounting. Not for humanity, whose casualties remained surprisingly low. The cost was measured in a different way. Every victory made the galaxy more afraid of the humans. Every battle showed the Council just how ruthless their allies could be. Captain Nicole Bennett sat in her quarters aboard the TDS Crucible. She was reviewing combat footage from the latest engagement. The Devourers had tried a new formation. Within 2 hours, humanity had countered it. Within 4 hours, every enemy ship was destroyed. The adaptation was so fast it seemed almost inhuman. A message came through her personal terminal. It was from Admiral George Harper himself. Captain Bennett, report to the secure conference room immediately. Nicole arrived 5 minutes later. The room was filled with other fleet commanders. Ryan Foster was there, Laura Kim, Danny Sullivan, who had been promoted after Meridian, and a dozen others. All of them looked serious. George Harper appeared on the main screen. He was 73 years old but still sharp as a blade. His gray hair was cut military short. His eyes missed nothing. "Commanders, we have a situation," George began. "Our deep space probes have detected a massive devourer gathering in the dead zone. That's the region where old stars go to die. Sensors are unreliable there, but we estimate over 15,000 enemy ships are massing for a final assault." A murmur ran through the room. 15,000 ships. It was an impossible number. "They're planning to hit the Council's core worlds all at once," George continued. "If they succeed, the war is over. The galaxy falls. What about our forces?" Nicole asked. "We can field about 200 ships," George said. "The Council can contribute maybe 300 more. Against 15,000, those numbers don't mean much." The room fell silent. Everyone was doing the math. 500 ships against 15,000. The odds were beyond bad. They were suicidal, so what's the plan? Ryan asked. George's expression became even more serious. "Operation Final Dawn, it's our most dangerous strategy. Every ship will be equipped with a Nova Core device. These devices create temporary wormholes that pull matter into quantum singularities. We'll engage the Devourers, activate the cores, and create multiple singularities that tear apart their entire fleet." "And our ships?" Laura asked quietly. "We'll have a 7-minute window to retreat after activation. It's tight, but the calculations show it's possible." 7 minutes. Nicole thought about what that meant. 7 minutes to escape a gravitational collapse that would destroy everything nearby. 7 minutes while 15,000 enemy ships tried to stop them. "This is a suicide mission," someone said. "No," George corrected firmly. "It's a calculated risk. The alternative is watching the Devourers consume the galaxy. Then eventually they reach our borders. We fight them now on our terms, or we fight them later when they're even stronger." Nicole understood. This was humanity's nature. Face the threat head on. Never wait for the enemy to come to you. Take the fight to them no matter the cost. "When do we deploy?" she asked. 48 hours, George replied. "Use that time to prepare your crews. Tell them the truth. Tell them what we're asking them to do. And remind them that they're humanity's finest. If anyone can pull this off, it's them." The meeting ended. The commanders dispersed to their ships. Nicole walked slowly back to the Crucible. She thought about her crew. Good people. Brave people. She had to ask them to fly into the most dangerous battle in human history. She called a ship-wide meeting. Every crew member who wasn't on essential duty gathered in the main hangar. Nicole stood on a raised platform where everyone could see her. "In 48 hours, we're going into battle," she began. "This won't be like our previous engagements. The enemy outnumbers us 30 to 1. The odds are terrible. Some of you might not make it back." She paused, letting that sink in. "But I want you to understand what we're fighting for. We're not fighting for the Council. We're not fighting for glory. We're fighting because if we don't, the Devourers will consume everything. Every world. Every species. Eventually they'll reach Earth, our families, our homes." The crew listened in absolute silence. "Humanity has survived impossible odds before," Nicole continued. "We survived ice ages. We survived plagues. We survived wars that nearly destroyed us. We survived because when faced with extinction, we don't give up. We fight, we adapt, we win." She looked across the faces before her. Young and old, veterans and rookies, all of them ready. "I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest battle of our lives. But I believe in every single one of you. And I believe that when this is over, we'll have saved the galaxy. Not because we're the strongest, not because we're the smartest, but because we're willing to do what needs to be done. Cheers erupted across the hangar. Not loud celebration, but quiet determination. The crew understood. They were scared, but they were ready. 48 hours later, the human fleets jumped into the dead zone. The Devourers were waiting. Their armada spread across thousands of kilometers. When the human ships appeared, the enemy reacted instantly. They swarmed toward the humans like a tide of death. All ships execute evasive maneuvers, Nicole commanded. Draw them in. Make them commit. The human fleet scattered. Each group ran in a different direction. The Devourers split up to pursue. For 6 hours, the running battle raged through nebulas and dead stars. Human ships fired desperately while staying ahead of the swarm, but they were running out of space. The dead zone had limits. Soon there would be nowhere left to run. All ships report ready, Chris said from the sensor station. Nicole took a deep breath. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. All ships, she transmitted on the fleet channel. Activate Nova cores. Across the dead zone, 217 human ships simultaneously powered up their devices. Space itself began to warp. The fabric of reality twisted. The Devourers sensed something wrong. They tried to break off their pursuit. Too late. All ships, jump now, Nicole shouted. The human fleets initiated emergency hyperspace jumps. They fled as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, the singularities expanded and merged. A massive gravitational anomaly formed. It pulled everything nearby into oblivion. Devourer ships by the thousands were crushed, torn apart, simply ceased to exist. The Crucible escaped the blast zone with seconds to spare. Nicole watched the sensors as 11,000 Devourer vessels were destroyed in an instant. The remaining 4,000 scattered in complete panic. Their hive mind coordination shattered. All ships, Nicole transmitted. Turn around. Finish them. The human forces reversed course. They jumped back to face what remained. This time there was no coordination. No unified defense. Just terrified, isolated ships trying to escape. The battle lasted 3 more hours. When it ended, not a single Devourer ship remained. Nicole stood on the bridge staring at the debris field that stretched across light years. Around her, the crew worked in stunned silence. Casualty report, she said quietly. 12 ships lost, Chris reported. His voice was heavy. 8 during the fighting. 4 that couldn't escape the Nova Corps blast in time. Total casualties, 4,317. Nicole closed her eyes. Over 4,000 lives gone, but they had saved trillions. The Devourers were finished. The galaxy was safe. Send a message to Earth Command, Nicole said. Mission accomplished. The war's over. The message spread across the galaxy within hours. The Devourers were defeated. The threat was ended, and humanity had done what no one else could. They had faced impossible odds and won, but the cost was written in the stars. 4,000 names that would be remembered forever. Heroes who gave everything to save a galaxy that had once feared them. Nicole thought about those names. She thought about the crews who didn't make it home, and she made a silent promise that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. The war was over, but the story of humanity's sacrifice had only just begun. 3 months after the final battle, the galaxy was still recovering. Worlds that had been attacked were being rebuilt. Trade routes were reopening. Military fleets returned to their home systems. Peace was returning, but it felt different now. The galaxy had changed. A formal ceremony was scheduled at Neutral Station 7. The Galactic Council wanted to honor humanity for their sacrifice. Every major species sent representatives. News networks from across 73 star systems broadcast the event. The galaxy was watching. Ambassador Helen Price stood in her quarters aboard the station, adjusting her formal uniform. She looked at herself in the mirror. The past year had aged her. New lines on her face. More gray in her hair. The weight of command had taken its toll. A message came through. Ambassador, it's time. Helen walked to the main ceremony hall. The room was packed with delegates from every corner of the galaxy. They stood as she entered. Not because protocol demanded it, but because they genuinely respected what humanity had done. High Chancellor Vorn stood at the center platform. He held a crystal case containing the Star of Unity, the highest honor the Council could bestow. As Helen approached, Vorn bowed his head, another sign of respect. Ambassador Price, Vorn said, his voice carrying across the hall. On behalf of the Galactic Council and all free species, we present you with the Star of Unity. Humanity faced impossible odds. You fought when others could not. You sacrificed when others would not. You saved the galaxy. He placed the medal around Helen's neck. The crystal caught the light, creating rainbow patterns across the walls. The assembled delegates applauded. But Helen noticed something in their eyes. Not just gratitude, fear. They were applauding the species that had become the galaxy's most dangerous weapon. Helen stepped to the podium. The applause died down. Everyone waited to hear what she would say. The Council honors humanity today, Helen began. But I want you to remember something. We didn't fight this war for medals. We didn't fight for recognition. We fought because it was necessary. Because the alternative was extinction. She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity learned long ago that survival isn't pretty. It's not noble. It's brutal and messy, and sometimes it requires becoming the monster that others fear. But we also learned that monsters can choose who they protect. And we chose to protect the galaxy. The hall remained silent. Every delegate hung on her words. 4,317 humans died in the final battle. Helen continued. Thousands more were wounded in the months before. They gave everything so that your worlds could survive, so that your children could have a future. Remember their sacrifice, honor it, and never forget that humanity bled for you. She stepped back from the podium. The applause was different now, quieter, more solemn. They understood the price that had been paid. After the ceremony, Helen found a quiet observation deck. She stood alone, looking out at the stars. Commander Jake Morrison found her there. Thinking about the future? Jake asked. Wondering if we made the right choice, Helen admitted. We wanted the galaxy to respect us. Now they're terrified of us. Is that better? Jake looked out at the stars too. Fear and respect are connected. We've earned both. Maybe that's what humanity needs. No one will underestimate us again. No one will attack our colonies. We've secured our place not through diplomacy but through strength. And when the next threat emerges, Helen asked, will they call on us again? Will humanity become the galaxy's permanent soldiers? Maybe, Jake said. Or maybe they'll learn to stand on their own. Either way, humanity survived. We're no longer isolated. We're part of the galaxy now, whether they like it or not. Helen smiled slightly. No species dares enter human space. And now, Jake added, the whole galaxy knows why. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from the station. Each one represented a different species, a different world. All of them alive because humanity had been willing to fight. Across the galaxy, life was returning to normal. On Vraxian worlds, children played in streets that had been empty during the war. On Thelonian colonies, farmers planted crops again. On Kryn stations, traders reopened their shops. Peace had returned. But in every council chamber, in every military headquarters, in every government building, the same conversation was happening. What do we do about humanity? They had solved one problem by creating another. The Devourers were defeated, but now the galaxy had a new power to worry about, a species that had proven they could destroy any enemy. A species that fought with such efficiency it seemed inhuman. A species that would do whatever it took to survive. Some council members argued for restrictions, limits on human military expansion, treaties to control their weapons. But others pointed out the obvious problem. You couldn't restrict a species that didn't follow your rules. You couldn't control a force that answered to no one but themselves. High Chancellor Vorn sat in his private chambers, thinking about this dilemma. His advisor, a younger Vraxian named Krell, stood nearby. What troubles you, Chancellor? Krell asked. Humanity, Vorn said simply. We asked for their help and they gave it. But now I wonder if we've created a bigger problem. They're too powerful, too dangerous. How do we live with that? Perhaps, Krell suggested, we don't need to control them. Perhaps we just need to not provoke them. Vorn considered this. You suggest we treat them like we did before the war? Keep our distance? No, Krell said. Before the war we treated them like criminals. Now we treat them like partners. We trade with them. We communicate with them. We respect their borders and their independence. And in return they don't destroy us. That's not a partnership, Vorn said. That's appeasement. Call it what you want, Krell replied. But humanity has shown us what happens when you make them your enemy. I'd rather have them as uncomfortable allies than as enemies. Vorn knew his advisor was right. The galaxy would have to accept humanity as they were. Dangerous, powerful, and completely independent. It wasn't ideal, but it was reality. On Earth, in the headquarters of Earth Command, Admiral George Harper was having a similar conversation with his staff. "The Council is nervous," said Colonel Tracy Moore. "They're grateful we saved them, but they're also afraid of us." "Good," George said. "Fear keeps people honest. They won't try to manipulate us if they're afraid of the consequences." "But can we build a lasting peace on fear?" Tracy asked. George leaned back in his chair. "Peace is never just one thing. It's built on many factors. Mutual benefit, respect, communication, and yes, sometimes fear. The important thing is that we've proven ourselves. We're not the isolated species hiding behind walls anymore. We're a major power that the galaxy has to acknowledge. And if they try to restrict us, limit our military? They won't," George said confidently, "because they know we'd ignore any restrictions. And they know they can't enforce them. We've shown them what humanity is capable of. Now they have to live with that knowledge." Back on Neutral Station 7, the ceremony had ended. Delegates were departing to their ships. Helen stood at a window watching them go. Each ship represented a species that owed its survival to humanity. Captain Nicole Bennett joined her. "Ambassador," Captain Helen replied. "Congratulations on your promotion. Admiral suits you." Nicole had been promoted after the final battle. She now commanded the entire First Fleet. "I'm not sure I deserve it. Too many good people died under my command." "They died heroes," Helen said firmly. "Never forget that. And never let anyone else forget it either." Nicole nodded. "What happens now? Do we go back to isolation?" "No," Helen said. "We can't go back. We're part of the galaxy now, but we do it on our terms. We trade with species that respect us. We defend our borders without apology. We build alliances with those who treat us as equals, and we make it very clear that we're not anyone's weapon to be used and discarded. The Council won't like that." "They don't have to like it," Helen said. "They just have to accept it." Nicole looked out at the stars. "Do you think there will be another war?" "Probably," Helen admitted. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. But next time they'll know who to call. And more importantly, they'll know to treat us with respect from the start. And if they don't?" Helen's smile was cold. "Then they'll learn the hard way. Again." They stood together, two women who had helped guide humanity through its darkest hour. The war was over, but their work was just beginning. Building a lasting peace would be harder than winning the war. But if anyone could do it, humanity could, because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They overcame. And now, finally, the galaxy understood what that meant. Years would pass. The memory of the Devourer War would fade into history. New generations would be born who never knew the terror of the invasion. But one thing would remain constant. No species dared enter human space without permission. No military force challenged human vessels. No government tried to dictate terms to Earth. Because the galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not a species to be trifled with. They were survivors who had clawed their way up from the bottom of their world's food chain. They were warriors who had fought each other for millennia before uniting. They were the species that would do whatever it took to protect what they loved. And most importantly, they were the species that had saved the galaxy when no one else could.